The hum of the old dryer is the only heartbeat left in this place tonight. It's near midnight and I'm folding towels still warm from the drum. The scent of detergent mixing with the faint sweetness of motel coffee that's been sitting on the warmer too long. Outside, the highway hums like a restless animal. Trucks passing, lights streaking by the window of the laundry room. Before we continue, make sure to hit the like button. Also, tell us in the comments, what time is it where you are right now and which city are you watching from? I love seeing how far our stories travel. The towels are the thick white ones my wife ordered years ago. Egyptian cotton, double-stitched edges. She said guests could feel care in the small things, and she was right. Even now, when I press the fold sharp, I can almost hear her hum along with the dryer. Her voice soft, never hurried. She used to work this room barefoot, her toes tapping the tiles to whatever song was playing on that old radio we kept above the sink. I never replaced the radio after it died. Some things aren't meant to be revived. Tonight the motel smells like her. Soap, coffee, a little bit of rain on the carpet runners. The lobby lights are low, the front desk lamp turned down to a golden glow. I keep the bell polished, though no one rings it anymore. It's a small place, 12 rooms, an office, a laundry, a lobby, nothing fancy. But these walls have held my entire life, and for a long time it felt like enough. Then my son brought home a new wife, and everything started to sound off-key. She's younger, quick-tongued, confident in the way only people untouched by rust can be. She sees this place as an asset, a brand, a story waiting to be reimagined. Every word she says feels like it's wearing heels, loud, polished, a little too high off the ground. I don't mind ambition, the world belongs to those who chase it. But somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing what we built. The hands that scrubbed the grout, the nights we spent repainting room 12 after a storm took the roof off. To her, the motel isn't memory, it's inventory. A week ago, I overheard her say to a contractor, "Once we modernize the lobby, we'll finally look like a real hotel. Beckett can handle janitorial stuff until we hire staff." Janitorial stuff. I didn't say anything then, just nodded, smiled, and kept folding. The thing about age is, silence becomes your favorite tool. People think it means you've surrendered when really you're just listening for their tells. She's planning an opening party tomorrow night. Soft relaunch, she calls it. There'll be an espresso bar, potted palms, LED signs spelling the new name, the Marigold Inn. She had the old wooden letters, the ones my wife painted by hand, hauled off to the dumpster. Said they looked tired. I couldn't argue. They were tired, like me. Still, I walked out there after everyone left and fished them out. Brought them back here to the laundry room. They lean against the wall now next to the extra towels. The yellow paint is chipped, but when I run my fingers over the carved M, I feel something I can't quite name, a mixture of defiance and mourning. Sometimes I catch my reflection in the vending machine glass. The man staring back looks like the maintenance guy, not the owner. My hands smell like bleach and old wiring. I don't hate that. Work keeps grief from pooling too long in one place. But there's a quiet kind of pain in being mistaken for someone who doesn't own the keys he carries. I walk the corridor to make sure the security lights are still working. Room 4's door swells in the frame. Humidity again. I'll plane it down tomorrow. In room 7, a single lamp glows. A guest must have left it on. I step inside and switch it off. The room breathes out as the light dies. Faint smell of detergent and lemon polish. My wife always said every room needed a name, not a number. She used to whisper to them, "Oh, good night, Bluebird, sleep well, Magnolia." I remember laughing at her for it once. She said, "You laugh. But kindness sticks to wood if you offer it long enough. I didn't laugh again after that. When I reach the lobby, the neon sign outside flickers. Half the O in Motel has burned out. I know how to fix it. I've done it a dozen times, but tonight I let it blink. There's something fitting about a broken letter still trying to glow. A car passes on the road, headlights cutting through the glass and scattering shadows across the new decor. The fake plants look silver for a moment, plastic leaves catching the light. The new espresso machine hums softly. She insisted we needed it for aesthetic value. The thing costs more than 3 months of linen service. I pour myself a cup anyway. It tastes burnt, bitter, mechanical. But I drink it down. Waste is worse than bitterness. When I head back toward the laundry room, I catch voices from upstairs. My son and his wife. She's laughing, excited, talking about tomorrow's launch, about guests, photos, investors. Then her voice drops lower, casual but sharp. We'll let him handle the back end for now. He likes that sort of thing. My steps stop at the landing. I stare at the wall for a long time. There's a picture hanging there. Me and my wife in front of the vacancy sign the day we bought this place 42 years ago. Her hair's caught by the wind, her smile wide, eyes bright. The world was smaller then. The highway, the field, the two of us, nothing else. I touch the glass, dust on my fingertips. You'd have laughed, I whisper. Back downstairs, the dryer clicks off. The silence that follows is thick. I stack the folded towels, slide them onto the shelf, and look around the room one more time. Every hum, every creak, every shadow feels like part of her voice. The window fogs from the last of the heat. Through it, I can see the new sign they put up earlier. Sleek letters glowing white against the night. It doesn't say Beckett's Motel anymore, it says the Marigold Inn. I should feel proud that it's getting a second life. But all I feel is distance. There's a phrase I remember my wife saying whenever things got hard. Respect isn't what people give you, Beckett. It's what you refuse to lose. I whisper it now to no one in particular. Tomorrow the guests will come, cameras will flash. The espresso machine will hiss. They'll call it a new beginning. And I'll stand quietly at the back, polishing the bell, folding napkins invisible as air. For now, though, I turn off the dryer, flick the light and let the dark settle around me like an old familiar coat. Some nights are quiet before the storm. And some nights, the storm is already here. The morning sun comes through the new glass doors in wide, hard streaks. It cuts across the old counter like a judgment, making the scuffs and dents glow brighter instead of hiding them. I used to like the softer light that filtered through the lace curtains my wife hung there. But those were taken down last week. Too dated, she said. Now the lobby smells like construction dust and citrus disinfectant. There's a hum of activity, workers stapling faux greenery to the wall, a photographer arranging his lights, and my son's wife directing everything like a movie set. She's dressed in cream slacks and a silk blouse, hair tied in one of those sleek knots that never seem to loosen even in heat. She waves her phone toward the counter. Beckett, can you clear that space? The espresso machine's delivery is coming in an hour and we need to stage it for the shoot. I nod, lift the old cash drawer out of the counter and carry it to the back. It's heavier than it used to be, not in weight but in memory. My wife carved our initials into the inside of that drawer when we first opened. She said it would bring luck. Luck doesn't last forever, but workmanship does. From the back room, I hear her talking to the photographer. We want something timeless but fresh. Think rustic revival. The phrase lands strange in my ears. Rustic revival. We were rustic before it was an aesthetic. Back then, it just meant you couldn't afford better flooring. By noon, the new sign is ready. She stands at the front entrance with my son and her parents, all smiles. The photographer asks them to pose, and she loops her arm through his, tilts her head, perfect angle. "Beckett," she calls out without looking at me. "Would you mind stepping out of the shot? We'll get some staff photos later." Staff. The word hangs there for a moment, light but heavy enough to sink something deep in me. I step aside, watching her parents beam at the camera. They own a couple of franchises downstate, coffee shops, yoga studios, places with polished concrete floors and names that sound like verbs. They see this motel as another venture. I can tell by the way they survey the lobby. Not with affection, but with assessment. After the photos, they gather around the espresso bar. She turns to her mother. "We're phasing out the continental breakfast, coffee, croissants, and curated playlists. That's the vibe." Her mother nods. Charming. Her father grins. "It'll print money once you add events. Weddings, elopements, pop-ups. You've got a gold mine here." Then she says it, casual, laughing. "Well, not yet. We're still cleaning up some of the vintage elements. Beckett's been a lifesaver, though. He knows all the pipes, wires, and what would you call it, janitorial magic?" Laughter. Just a small burst, enough to sting. I keep my eyes on the countertop, running a rag along the grain the same way I've done for 40 years. "Magic," I murmur, more to myself than to them. "Takes a bit of work to make it look easy." She doesn't catch it, or maybe she does, but ignores it. I retreat to the office. The smell of lemon polish and coffee follows me in. I close the door gently, sit in the chair my wife used to use, and open the old ledger book. The paper's gone yellow around the edges, her handwriting curls across the pages. Steady, careful. Rent due dates, vendor payments, utility bills. And in the margins, little notes to herself. Order new blankets. Remember Mrs. Duffy's tea. I trace the pen strokes with my finger like following a map back home. Outside, there's laughter again. The sound of champagne glasses clinking. A photographer telling them to lean in closer. I pull out the envelope from the county tax office, slide it onto the desk. It's marked in red. Delinquent notice, 2 quarters behind. I'd planned to pay it this month, but my son wanted to use the reserve fund for the relaunch. Said we'd make it back in bookings. I don't mention it to them yet, not today. Instead, I take out a piece of paper, draw a small grid. The motel's layout. 12 rooms, 2 boilers, 3 roof lines, and the old septic that's been patched more times than I can count. I start marking what needs attention. It's how I think, quietly, systematically. Around 5 in the afternoon, the guests start trickling in for the preview night. Local bloggers, travel agents, a few friends of her parents. The lobby glows under new track lighting, and the espresso machine hums like a showpiece. The fake plants glimmer under the filters of phone cameras. I stand near the back, holding a tray of pastries. I'm not wearing a uniform, but I might as well be. A man in a blazer asks if I can refill the coffee. I nod, smile, and do it. No point correcting him. Across the room, my son looks at me, mouth tightening for a moment before he turns back to his guests. Guilt flickers there, calm, brief, but visible. When the music starts, I slip outside. The air's cool, quiet. I walk along, the side of the building, past the humming compressors, past the room where my wife used to keep her gardening tools. The marigolds she planted by the walkway are just beginning to brown at the edges. Inside the small shed, the shelves still smell like soil and fertilizer. Her gloves are there, small, worn, the leather cracked at the fingers. I lift them gently. Dust floats in the light from the single bulb. I whisper, "It's changing, love. All of it." For a moment, I swear I can hear her voice, not words, just the soft hum she used to make when she worked, the sound of calm woven into noise. I sit there for a while, the muffled bass from the party pulsing faintly through the walls. My fingers rest on her gloves. There's a thought forming in the quiet. Something not loud, not vengeful, just clear. Change isn't the enemy, but disrespect is a kind of rot. Slow, silent, and sure. When I stand, the air outside feels colder. I walk back toward the lobby, lights still flashing through the windows. Through the glass, I see her posing again, head thrown back in laughter. I look down at my hands, the ones that built these walls, wired the signs, sealed the roof, the ones she just called janitorial. That word might have come easy to her, but it landed heavy in me, heavy enough to shift something. I press a hand to the cool metal of the door handle, then let it go. No scene tonight, no confrontation, not yet. I'll wait, I'll watch, and I'll remember every word. Because when the time comes, I won't need to raise my voice. I'll let the paper that's on the ledgers, the deeds, the contracts, do the talking. And they'll speak louder than any insult ever could. The party was over by midnight, but the noise lingered. Even after the guests drove off and the last champagne flute clinked into the trash, the walls still held an echo of that new kind of laughter. Brittle, manufactured, the kind that dissolves when the lights go out. I didn't sleep. The bed in my small apartment above the office felt harder than usual. The hum of the highway too close. I kept replaying that moment, janitorial magic, and the way everyone had smiled. I'd known plenty of insults in my life, but few wrapped themselves so neatly in charm. By dawn, I was downstairs again. The air smelled of coffee grounds and lemon cleaner. The fake plants stood perfectly still, every leaf identical, unmoving. I missed real ones. The way they drooped if you forgot to water them, how they taught you responsibility through their quiet fragility. At the counter sat a stack of unopened envelopes, bills, statements, the latest from the tax office. I flipped through them, my hand steady, until I reached the one I'd been avoiding. County Property Tax Division. I slid it open with the edge of my pocket knife. The number inside didn't surprise me anymore, just confirmed what I already knew. This place was more debt than dream. My son's wife had spent close to $20,000 on ambiance improvements since spring. Pendant lights, branded mugs, touchless faucets, all on credit, all riding on projected bookings. She'd called it investment. I called it weight. There's a saying my wife used to repeat whenever we balanced the books. Numbers don't lie, Beckett. But they do whisper if you listen long enough. That morning I started listening. I took my ledger and keys, locked the office, and drove into town. The sun was just climbing above the silos, the fields still rimmed with frost. The bank sat on Main Street, a squat brick building with a flag that always tangled itself in the wind. Inside, the air was cool and still, the way it always is in places that handle other people's worries. "Morning, Beckett," said Frank behind the counter. The same man who'd approved our first business loan 42 years ago. His hair had gone white, but his tie knot was still perfect. "Morning," I said. "I need to talk about the operating loan." He glanced at me over his glasses. "Everything all right?" "Depends how you define right. I'm just making sure the signatures are clean. Whose name's on what? Whose guarantee covers which line?" He nodded, motioned me toward his office. The conversation took an hour. Numbers, dates, clauses. Small things, but they mattered. Turns out most of the motel's recent credit extensions were tied to my personal guarantee. Not the business, not my son, just me. "Can I remove that?" I asked. He hesitated. "You can, but the loan will have to be restructured under the LLC's name. You'd need the current managing partner to accept full responsibility for the debt." I smiled. "That won't be a problem." He didn't need to know the rest. That I was the managing partner. and that I could transfer that title whenever I chose. When I left the bank, the air had warmed. I stood by the truck for a long time, just feeling the sunlight. There was no joy in it, just relief. The quiet kind you get when a plan starts to take shape. Next stop was the lawyer's office. Marjorie had handled our papers for decades. She used to bring cookies when my wife was still alive, back when we'd sit at her oak table and talk about wills and partnerships like they were distant storms. She looked up when I walked in. "Well, look who's still kicking," she said, smiling. "Barely," I said. "Need to talk assignments and ownership transfers." She raised an eyebrow. "You finally ready to let that place go?" "Not exactly," I said, "more like ready to let it teach someone a lesson." We went through the forms, the operating agreement, the deed, the LLC structure. Marjorie explained each step with the precision of someone who knew how to separate emotion from paperwork. The assignment form slid across the table, 2 signatures, a witness line, and the notary seal. "This would transfer management and liability to the new operators," she said. "Once filed, it's binding. You sure?" "I'm sure," I said. "If they want control, they can have it. Every inch, every invoice." She studied me for a long moment. "You're not angry," she said. "No," I said softly. "I'm tidy." By the time I returned to the motel, the afternoon had turned to gold. My son was outside tightening the bolts on the new sign. "Looks good, doesn't it?" he said. "It's bright," I said. "Can see it from the highway." He nodded, wiping his hands. "She's really turned this place around. Bookings are up, Dad. Maybe you should take some time off. You've earned it." Time off. As if time were something you could save in a jar. I looked at him, the boy who used to ride his bike around the parking lot, helping me carry paint cans, wiping his face on his sleeve. He didn't look like that anymore. Success had polished him too, smoothed his edges, dulled his listening. "I'll take some time," I said. "Soon." That night I opened the safe in the office. Inside, under old insurance papers and receipts, were 2 things my wife had left me. A photograph of us on opening day and a folded note in her handwriting. I'd never read it before. It had been sealed in an envelope marked, "For later." I sat down, the hum of the fluorescent light above me steady and low, and opened it. "Beckett, if you're reading this, you've probably stayed longer than you promised me you would. Remember, we built this place to live, not to haunt. Let it go when it stops sounding like home." The words were simple, but they cut deep. I leaned back in the chair, the creak of it loud in the quiet. Outside, the neon sign flickered, half its letters still struggling to stay lit. Let it go when it stops sounding like home. It hadn't sounded like home in a long time. By morning, I had the documents ready, the LLC reassignment drafted, the guarantee removal scheduled, and a separate account, one I'd opened that day, under my wife's name, holding just enough to seed something she'd always wanted. A scholarship fund for the local hospitality school, the Marigold Bursary. I smiled at that. She would have liked the irony. Her name living on through kindness, while the motel that stole her best years finally paid its debts in full. When my son came downstairs for coffee, I handed him a stack of vendor invoices. "You'll need to get these authorized this week," I said. He frowned. "Why me?" I shrugged. "You're the manager now, at least on paper." He looked confused, but before he could ask, I turned back to the counter. "Oh, the tax payment's due Friday, don't miss it." I didn't say more. There was no need. The bell on the counter glinted in the morning light, polished and waiting. I gave it one soft ring. The sound carried through the empty lobby, clean, sharp, final. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive in shouting or punishment. It arrives in signatures, in ink, in the quiet shuffling of papers that shift the weight of the world from one hand to another. And as I looked around the lobby, at the fake plants, the humming machine, the bright sign, I realized I'd already begun the only kind of farewell that ever truly lasts. Not a goodbye in words, but in ownership. The week after the paperwork, the motel felt still. Not silent, just holding its breath. It's funny how a place can sense when something beneath its surface has shifted. The pipes creaked differently. The lights flickered slower. Even the ice machine, that old beast in the hallway, seemed to groan more softly, as if it knew I was almost done feeding it quarters of my life. The morning started the same as always. A smell of coffee and dust, the grind of the espresso machine coming to life before the sun. I cleaned the counter, checked the register, then the boiler gauges in the back. Routine. Familiarity. It's what people mistake for peace. My son's wife breezed through the door around 9, dressed in pale blue, sunglasses still on though the morning light was gentle. She was on a call, talking numbers, laughter rehearsed and bright. I caught fragments, investors and photo shoot and wedding packages. She didn't notice me wiping down the counter, or maybe she did and didn't care. "Beckett, don't forget," she said between sentences. "We need those room maintenance reports by Thursday. Presentations this weekend. We'll need them printed and laminated." Her voice was brisk, polite, and distant. "The way you talk to a contractor you've already underpaid." I nodded. "Thursday," I said. She was already gone before the second syllable left my mouth. The phone rang a few minutes later. "Marjorie." "All filed," she said. "Assignments official. Deed transfer pending, but operational authority's theirs. You're free and clear." "Good," I said quietly. "Thank you, Marjorie." She hesitated. "Beckett, you sure you don't want to keep a foot in the door? An advisory clause at least?" "No," I said. "If you leave a foot in the door, someone will always close it on you." We hung up. After that, I went through the ledger for the last time. Every column balanced, every due date circled in red. Payroll, vendor deliveries, insurance renewals, boiler inspections, and a nice little surprise, a credit line renewal notice. I tucked that one into the folder labeled Operations and Obligations, then I started to pack. Not clothes, not pictures, evidence. I gathered every tangible thread that made this place run. The spare keys, maintenance schedules, vendor lists, tax filings, warranty cards, contact sheets, even the old emergency numbers handwritten by my wife years ago. Everything went into a leather binder, clean, heavy, final. There's a strange relief in preparing an ending. It's not anger. It's not revenge. It's neatness. A life reduced to a file that fits under your arm. By late afternoon, the day cooled. Clouds rolled in over the highway, gray and heavy with summer rain. I stepped outside to check the gutters, old habit, and found my son fixing one of the marquee lights. His sleeves were rolled up, sweat glinting on his forehead. For a moment, he looked like the boy who used to race me to the ice machine laughing when I pretended to lose. "Need a hand?" I asked. He shook his head, smiling. "Got it." He looked tired. I could see it around his eyes. "How's she doing?" I asked. "She's focused," he said, then laughed under his breath. "It's a lot more work than she expected. The guests, the reviews, the constant upkeep." I let him talk. He needed to hear himself say it. After a while, he looked at me, expression softer. "Dad, you know she means well, right? She's just trying to make this place something more." "It already was something," I said gently. "She just couldn't see it." He nodded, gaze falling. "She'll come around." "Maybe," I said. "But the thing about respect, it only grows in the soil of consequence." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said, "just an old man talking to his walls." We stood there for a moment, the sound of cars rolling by on the highway, the smell of rain in the air. Then he went back to work and I went back inside. That evening, as the sky opened and rain began to fall, I went room by room with my maintenance checklist. Room 2, light flickers near the bathroom. Room 6, AC filter due for replacement. Room 9, the same window still sticks. Every note went neatly into the binder. It felt like a ritual, a quiet inventory of all the years spent fixing things no one noticed. The wallpaper my wife chose still clung in places, sun-faded but alive. The doorknobs, the handrails, the floorboards creaking where she used to step. They all felt like part of her voice, still here, whispering through wood and plaster. When I reached the lobby, the lights were off. Only the sign outside glowed through the glass. The Marigold Inn. Her name, rebranded, commodified, but still her name. It no longer hurt to see it. Not anymore. I placed the binder on the counter next to the brass master key. The same one she'd given me the day we opened. She'd said, "You're the keeper now." I traced the edge of the key with my thumb. Soon, I wouldn't be. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat in the dark, listening to the rain. The smell of it through the open door, the cool air on my skin. The place looked almost alive again, stripped of people, just walls and weather. I thought of my wife's note. Let it go when it stopped sounding like home. She'd been right. It wasn't my home anymore, but it could still be my lesson. By the time the storm thinned, I'd finished labeling every file. Everything was ready. The next morning would be Sunday. We'd call a family meeting. She'd think it was about bookings or brand adjustments. My son would think it was about my retirement. But it would really be about truth, about weight and ownership, about keys and consequences. When I turned off the lobby light, the bell glimmered faintly in the dark. I touched it once, just enough for a single ring to echo through the empty hallway. It sounded steady, unafraid. Tomorrow I'd let it ring one last time, not for service, for closure. Sunday morning came soft and gray, the kind of sky that makes the world feel smaller, quieter, honest. The rain from the night before had left puddles on the asphalt, and the air smelled faintly of iron and pine. I was already awake before dawn. I don't sleep much these days. Too many years trained to rise before the guests. I brewed a pot of black coffee, poured it into my chipped mug, and stood by the lobby window watching the highway begin to breathe again. Today would be my last day here. The thought didn't ache the way I expected. It just settled, like a coat finally hung on its proper hook. By 8, the motel was stirring. I heard her voice before I saw her, sharp, rhythmic, full of momentum. She was on the phone, pacing in the hallway. "Yes, the bookings are steady. No, we don't have corporate accounts yet, but we're getting there. The review about the AC? Beckett's on it." She caught sight of me as she rounded the corner. "Oh, morning," she said. "Don't forget we've got that family meeting in half an hour. I invited my parents too. They want to discuss expansion options." "Good idea," I said quietly. Her smile faltered for just a second, uncertain whether I was serious. Then she nodded, already distracted by her next call. I went behind the counter, took out the binder I'd prepared, and laid it on the polished wood. The leather cover gleamed faintly in the dim light. Beside it sat the brass master key, heavy, cold. The sound it made when I set it down was final. I took a slow sip of coffee, then wiped the counter clean one last time. When they all arrived, my son, his wife, her parents, the lobby was spotless. I'd even brewed a fresh pot of coffee and set out cups like I always did. Old habits die slow. She was all smiles, energy, and confidence. "So," she said, clapping her hands once, "I wanted to talk through next quarter's projections and the vendor partnerships, but Dad thought we should first discuss ownership structure since you're technically still listed as managing partner, Beckett." Her father leaned back in his chair, that kind of casual confidence that smells like money. "Nothing personal, son," he said. "But for liability purposes, it's best to consolidate under the younger generation. Cleaner that way." I nodded. "Cleaner, yes." My son looked at me uneasy. "Dad, you don't have to decide anything right now. We just wanted to go over the options." "Oh, I've decided," I said softly. Their eyes turned toward me. I slid the binder across the counter, the leather whispering against the wood. "Everything you'll need to run this place is in there. Payroll schedules, vendor contracts, insurance renewals, boiler inspections, tax filings, health code deadlines, utility accounts, and the loan details. It's all yours now." My son blinked. "Wait, what do you mean ours?" "I signed over operational management last week," I said. "You're the new registered operators of the Marigold Inn, effective immediately." His wife's smile widened, relief mixed with triumph. "That's amazing, Beckett, thank you. You're finally letting us take charge. This is going to be—" I held up a hand, slow, calm. "There's more." Her parents leaned forward. I opened the binder and fanned the pages gently. Inside, you'll find the list of current debts and obligations. Payroll's due Friday. Total staff cost $7,200. Utilities come out on the 15th. The county lodging tax is 2 months late. There's also a maintenance loan, interest only, that renews in 10 days. It's now under your names. The air changed. It wasn't loud, not yet. But stillness has a sound when people stop pretending. Her eyes flicked from the binder to me. I don't understand." "You said you wanted control," I said, voice low, steady. "Now you have it. The title, the liability, the whole thing, every credit line, every invoice, every signature. You'll also find the county compliance schedule for health and fire inspections. I've highlighted the overdue ones." Her father shifted uncomfortably. "Wait, these obligations, are you saying you—" "I transferred them," I said. "Legally, cleanly. You'll find the notarized documents in the back. Congratulations. You're now the proprietors of the Marigold Inn." Silence. My son looked pale. "Dad, why would you do this?" I met his eyes. "Because this is what you both asked for. Creative control, authority, ownership." I paused. "It's not punishment, it's education." She stood slowly, the chair legs scraping against the tile. "This isn't fair. You can't just dump this on us. You didn't even warn—" "I did," I said. "Every bill, every warning notice, every email I forwarded, every conversation I tried to have. You just didn't listen." My son's voice broke through, quiet but sharp. "Dad, we didn't mean—" "I know," I said. "But meaning and doing are two different things. You can't run a place by pretending it's prettier than it is." Her mother cleared her throat, trying to soften it. "Maybe we can renegotiate the—" I shook my head. "All filed, no renegotiation. Everything's legal and binding." I reached for the brass key, held it between my fingers the way my wife used to hold it when she'd say, "Good night" to the guests. The metal caught the morning light, dull but proud. "I've been called a lot of things in my life," I said quietly. "Caretaker, owner, repairman, and lately, janitor." I placed the key on the counter next to the binder. "So I suppose it's fitting that the janitor be the one to lock up his time here." Her face flushed red, a mix of shock and embarrassment. My son reached for the binder, his hand shaking. "Dad, please, this isn't how—" "It's exactly how," I said. "When you build something from your hands, you learn the weight of keeping it standing. You two wanted that weight. Now it's yours. All of it." I stood, took my jacket from the hook and buttoned it slowly. "You'll be fine. You're smart. You'll learn quick." "Where will you go?" my son asked, voice low. "Someplace smaller," I said. "Someplace that doesn't need fixing every day." I turned toward the door, paused, and looked back once more. "You know," I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. "My wife used to say, respect isn't what people give you, it's what you refuse to lose. I think you'll understand that soon enough." Then I walked out into the light rain. The air smelled like freedom, clean, metallic, new. Behind me, I heard her voice rise in panic as she flipped through the binder. Papers rustling, pages turning fast. My son calling after me. A door opening, then silence. The bell on the counter gave one small ring as it closed behind me. The sound carried through the empty parking lot, sharp and clear. The same tone that had started every morning here for 4 decades. Only this time it wasn't summoning anyone, it was saying goodbye. 3 weeks passed before I let myself drive past the old motel again. The sign was still lit, the Marigold Inn, but one of the bulbs in the O had gone out, just like before. I'd have fixed it by now, but that wasn't my job anymore. The parking lot looked emptier than usual, 2 cars, maybe 3. The marigolds along the curb had browned at the edges, petals curled like tired hands. The sight of it pulled something quiet from inside me. Not pride, not pity, just distance. Like looking at a photograph you finally learned to stop keeping near the bed. I didn't go in. I parked across the road at the diner instead. Ordered black coffee and toast, sat by the window and watched. It's strange, Mum, how quickly a rhythm breaks when its keeper leaves. The blinds in room 3 hung crooked. The laundry carts were gone from their usual place, which meant they were likely still full, unemptied. A small thing, but small things are what keep places alive. The waitress poured my refill. "Haven't seen you in a while, Beckett," she said. "Everything all right over there?" I smiled. "Better than ever," I said. "Just under new management." She laughed softly, not understanding. "Well, I'm sure they'll keep it nice. You built a good place." "Good bones," I said, stirring the coffee. "Bones hold a lot, but they don't carry themselves." That evening the call came. It was my son. His voice was thin, brittle. "Dad?" "Yeah," I said. "Do you have a minute?" "Always." He hesitated, the line filled with the low hum of background noise. Maybe the boiler, maybe the rain. "We're behind on payroll, again, and the tax office sent another letter. I didn't realize how fast everything piles up. The bookings aren't what we expected, and the espresso machine keeps tripping the breaker. We had to comp 3 rooms last week because of the heat." I closed my eyes, listening. "I tried calling the electrician you used," he went on, "but his rates went up, and the plumber said the warranty lapsed. His voice caught. She thinks maybe we should take another loan." "Another?" I asked quietly. "I don't know what else to do." "You fix what's broken before you buy something new," I said. "That's how we kept it alive all these years." Silence, then quietly. "She didn't mean to insult you, Dad. That day, she just doesn't understand what it takes to keep something standing." "I know," I said. "The world doesn't teach people that anymore. It teaches them how to replace, not repair." He sighed. "We can't make Friday's payroll." I let that sit, long enough for him to hear the weight of it. Then I said softly, "Then you'll learn what openings cost." He didn't argue, didn't ask for money. That at least told me he'd grown a little. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know you are," I said. "That's why I didn't take the building with me." After he hung up, I sat in the quiet of my small apartment. The radio played low, an old blues station that faded in and out depending on how the wind hit the antenna. The air smelled like dust and rain. I looked around the room, smaller than the office I used to work in, but tidy. 2 chairs, 1 table, a window that opened onto the street. The kind of space that doesn't ask for much, doesn't expect you to fill it. There's a peculiar peace that comes with downsizing your life. You realize how much of living is just maintaining what you've already outgrown. A week later, another call came. This time, it was her. "Beckett," she said, breath tight, voice sharp with that tone people use when pride is cracking. "Do you know a man named Cal from County Sanitation?" "Sure do," I said. "He's been emptying that grease trap since '98. Good man. Why?" "He left a citation notice. Something about overdue maintenance and drainage backup. Says it'll shut down our kitchen if we don't comply by Monday. She stopped, trying to steady her voice. "I didn't realize those things needed scheduled service." "They do," I said. "Everything does if you want it to keep working." A pause. "I don't know how you did this for so long," she said finally. "With patience," I said, "and respect for the work." Silence again, then softer, almost human. "I owe you an apology." "No," I said. "You owe yourself one. I just hope you pay it." I could hear her breathing, small, quick. "We'll figure it out," she said. "We have to." "You will," I said, and I meant it. When she hung up, I sat back and stared out the window. Across the road, the motel's sign flickered weakly against the night. The same half-lit O still gasping for power. I could have gone over there and fixed it in 5 minutes. But I didn't. Some lessons aren't meant to be fixed for people. They're meant to be felt. The days blurred after that. Autumn crept in slow, cooler nights, shorter days, fewer guests along the highway. The town shifted to its off-season rhythm. Every now and then I'd drive by and notice changes. A tarp on the roof, a new help-wanted sign in the window. The espresso machine gone, replaced with a simple coffee pot. A hand-painted board out front that read, "Vacancy, clean rooms, warm beds." That one made me smile. It wasn't clever, but it was honest. One evening I parked and watched the lights flicker on in room 12, the one my wife used to iron linens in when the storms hit. I saw movement inside. My son, fixing something. Maybe a pipe, maybe a window. For the first time in a long while, the motel looked alive again. Not glamorous, not polished, just real. Maybe that's what resurrection really is. Not a grand reopening, not a rebrand, but a quiet return to truth. As I sat there watching, a gust of wind lifted a marigold petal off the curb. It drifted across the lot, caught the light from the sign, and vanished into the dark. I took it as a sign. My wife's way of saying the lesson had landed. Sometimes the hardest way to love someone is to let them fail with dignity. I finished my coffee, turned the key, and drove off toward home. Behind me, the neon sign blinked, then steadied for a moment, all letters glowing at once. For the first time since I left, the word marigold shone whole. And I let it. Winter came slow that year. The kind of slow that seeps into your bones before you realize the seasons changed. The wind along Highway 47 had that dry, whistling edge again, and the trees behind the old motel stood bare against a flat, pewter sky. I hadn't set foot on the property since the night I walked out. Drove by, sure, watched from across the road now and then, but I hadn't gone in. There's a difference between checking on something and touching it again. Then one afternoon I got a letter, handwritten, no return address on the envelope, just a smudge of blue ink where someone had pressed too hard on the pen. I opened it slowly, half expecting bad news, but what I found was a note in my son's handwriting. "Dad, we've been trying to make this place work. It's not easy, but it's teaching us more than we ever thought we'd learn. We fixed the boiler, repainted 3 rooms ourselves, and even brought back your breakfast menu. Real coffee, not the machine. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry, and that you were right. We'd like you to come by if you're up to it. Room 12, Tomorrow evening. No signatures. Just a folded key inside the envelope. One of the spares I'd left behind in the safe. I stared at it for a long time before slipping it into my pocket. The next day was overcast, the sky the color of wet stone. I took the old truck, drove the familiar road, each turn carrying a weight I'd thought I'd already put down. When the motel came into view, I slowed. It looked different. Not new, not polished, lived in. The sign still read the Marigold Inn, but now it was trimmed with 2 strings of small golden bulbs that pulsed softly against the gray. Someone had planted fresh marigolds in front, their orange heads stubbornly bright against the cold. When I parked, the gravel crunched under my boots just like it always did. Some sounds never change. Inside the lobby, the air was warm, faintly scented with coffee and cinnamon. The fake greenery was gone, replaced by a few small potted plants, real ones this time, soil still damp from watering. Behind the counter hung an old framed photo. Me and my wife standing in front of the motel the day we opened. My son looked up from the desk. He smiled, small, unsure, but real. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, kid." "She's in room 12, he said. "Wanted to show you something." I nodded. My boots made a hollow sound on the tile as I walked down the hallway. Same floorboard, same smell of old varnish and cleaning soap. But something felt lighter, the kind of lightness that comes after a long storm. When I reached room 12, the door was open. The lamp inside cast a warm yellow glow, soft and familiar. She was there, my son's wife, standing near the window, a bucket of paint at her feet, brush in hand. She turned when she heard me. "Beckett," she said, her voice quiet. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," I said. "I wouldn't blame you." The room was half-painted, walls a soft cream color now, covering the dull beige that had been there for years. The curtains were new too, simple cotton, no patterns. On the bed, a stack of folded quilts waited. My wife's quilts. She'd pulled them out of storage, washed them, repaired a few seams. "They were in the back closet," she said. "Thought they should be part of the rooms again." I walked in, ran my hand across one of the quilts, blue and gold squares stitched with small, uneven lines. My wife's hands had done that work. You could always tell by the tiny curve at each corner. Never perfect, always tender. "She'd like that," I said. She nodded. Her voice trembled a little. "I didn't understand, Beckett. Not really. I thought running this place was about design and branding and making things look good, but it's the small things. The towels folded right. The coffee brewed on time. The way you talk to people when they're tired and just need a place to rest." I let her words hang there. She wasn't making excuses. She was confessing. "I'm sorry," she said finally, "for the way I talked to you, for what I called you." I studied her face. There was no makeup this time, just tired eyes and a humility that hadn't been there before. I nodded slowly. "You learned?" I said. "That's all I ever wanted." She exhaled, relieved, then glanced around the room. "We renamed this one, you know. It's not room 12 anymore." "Oh?" "It's called Evelyn's room, after your wife." My throat caught a little. She'd have laughed at that. "She deserved it," she said softly. "You both did." There wasn't much more to say. Forgiveness doesn't need ceremony. It just needs truth. I stayed a while, helped her hang a picture on the wall, one of the sunset over the highway framed in old wood. We didn't talk much, just moved quietly around the room like people tidying up after a long argument. When I stepped outside again, the light was starting to fade. The parking lot glowed under the string bulbs, reflections shimmering in the puddles left by last night's rain. My son was at the counter fixing the register. The smell of real coffee drifted through the open door. He looked up. You staying for dinner? Not tonight, I said, but I'll come by again soon. He nodded. We'll keep it running, Dad. The right way this time. I know you will. I walked toward the truck, the gravel crunching softly. The neon sign buzzed above me, every letter shining bright now. Not flickering, not struggling, just steady. Whole. Before I got in, I turned back once more. Through the lobby window, I could see the glow of room 12, Evelyn's room. The curtains moved slightly in the warm air from the vent, and for a moment I could almost see her there, smoothing the bedspread, humming that old tune she used to hum when the night was calm. I smiled. Not the smile of pride or victory, but of peace. Respect had come full circle, not demanded, not forced, earned. I started the truck and drove toward the horizon, headlights carving a path through the dusk. The radio came on, static at first, then music, faint and sweet. Behind me in the rearview mirror, the Marigold Inn stood lit against the dark, the sign glowing bright, the windows warm, the life within carrying forward. I whispered into the quiet cab. You were right, love. Respect isn't what they give you. It's what you refuse to lose. And somewhere between the road and the sky, I swear I heard her laugh. Soft, content, like the sound of linen settling after the wind passes. The bell above the motel door rang, once in the distance, faint but clear. Not a summons, just a benediction. The work was done, and the light in room 12 stayed on. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that respect isn't given, it's lived, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to let someone learn the hard way what you'd been trying to teach with kindness? I read every one of your stories, and trust me, they always find a way to stay with me.